Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to our forum on ICT and Internet Policy and Regulations. My name is Abigail, and I will be your moderator for today's session. Before we start, let's first have our invocation to be shared by a multimedia
Sa ngalan samahan, ug sa anak, ug sa Espiritu Santo. Amen. Amahan nga makagahom, angayan kang daygon ug pasalamatan. Ikaw ang tinubdan sa kinabuhi. Gugma kalinaw ug kalipay. Salamat sa imong mga gasa sa amo sa matag adlaw.
Amahana mo nga langit nun, kami nga mga katawhan magkasasala, busa pasayloa kami sa mga sala.
وقال ربكم ادعوني استجب لكم اللهم اننا نسالك برحمتك ونورك الذي انعمت علينا بالايمان وصحه الاجساد برحمتك يا ارحم الراحمين ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنه وفي الاخره حسنه وقنا عذاب النار Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin.
Padayon kaming nagyukbo diha sa imong presensya, nga unta ipadala nimo karon adlaw ang imong proteksyon ug giya, aron padayon namong mabuhat ang mga tahas nga imong gihatag, alang sa imong dungog ug giya, ug alang sa kaayuhan sa usag isa.
So, good afternoon once again, everyone. To proceed with, I am Abigail Fernandez, and I will be your moderator for today's session. So, before anything else, I will first introduce to you our four distinguished speakers will each address a specific topic related to our subject matter. Allow me to introduce our speakers and facilitators of this forum. So first topic is the freedom of expression and censorship, which is tackled by Ms. Kayla Melmonia. Next is privacy and security by Joseph Hinolas. Discussing the surveillance and data retention by Ms. Marvian Badan. And lastly, the e-pollutants from e-waste, which is tackled by Ms. Lexin Tanudra. So to begin with, let's begin with our first speaker, which is Ms. Kayla Melmonia, who will tackle the freedom of expression and censorship.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. To clarify, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, so let me start this discussion by explaining why censorship, restrictions, and limitations exist within the concept of having freedom of expression. Now, there is no such thing such as absolute in this world, be it intentions, beliefs, culture, and let alone your freedom. The reason why censorship or restrictions exist, despite the concept of having freedom of expression, is because we have two main reasons. Number one being the protection of individual rights. This simply means that you cannot overstep another individual's freedom by executing yours. And number two is legal framework. Laws establish boundaries to protect both individual rights and societal interests, creating a structured environment for expression. Now, take spreading of misinformation as an example. Having the ability to express with freedom does not necessarily mean that you can share distasteful or sensitive or harmful topics or information that can cause or may cause harm to groups and individuals. Next slide, please. So, why does censorship exist? Next slide, please. Another. What actually is freedom of expression? Accordingly, freedom of expression encompasses three components. Number one being the right to disagree. Number two, right to voice opinions. And number three, um, the the access to information. Now, one can enjoy this privilege without the fear of being persecuted, but um, comes with privilege is restriction. Next slide, please. Why do we need censorship? In this technological and media driven society, the concept of censorship exists because violence and abuse exists. Ever since the dawn of time, violence and abuse exists. I'm not saying that it is a human nature, but rather a recurring societal issue. And whether we like it or not, it exists even in the media. Now, it is really important to uh, create a framework to resolve this issue. And let's just let's just say, for example, that you learned martial arts, um, and you cannot just beat people up just because you have the capability and the ability to, just because you learned. Similarly, you cannot just share information just because the information is within the grasp of your hands. It is important to create limits for you and your fellows' security. To make this simple, if you don't censor your let's let's use this as an example. So if you don't censor your, let's just say, bank account's PIN number on your social media post, you will most likely lose all your money in there because abuse exists and the possibility of it getting stolen is high. And that ends my discussion. Once again, thank you for having me, everyone.
Thank you. So next, let's hear from speaker number two, Ms. Marian Badan, tackling the, I'm sorry, speaker number two, Mr. Joseph Ginales, tackling the privacy security. Mr. Joseph?
So can you guys hear me now? Okay. So good afternoon, everyone. So today I'll be discussing the critical issues of privacy and security under our subject matter today, which is the information and communication technology and internet policy. So to start with, as we became increasingly dependent on digital technology, whether in our personal lives, education, or professional spaces, it is very essential to understand how our information is handled and protected online. So, privacy and security policies shape how data is collected, used, and safeguarded, impacting all of us in some ways because we cannot really avoid because we are really heading into severe technological advancement and majority of us are using technology, so this is timely and relevant to each and every one of us. So why are privacy and security in ICT important? Next presentation, please. Next slide, Thea. Okay, so first, let us break down first these key concepts. So what is privacy and what is security in ICT? So next, Thea, please. Okay, so here it is. So what is privacy? Accordingly, privacy in ICT is the right to control access to our personal data. So it's like our contact information, our browsing history, and digital identities. So it means we have a say on who can access our information and how it is being used. While on the other hand, security, on the other hand, refers to the protection in place to keep this information safe from an unauthorized access, breaches, or misuse. So you can think of privacy as choosing who you invite into your home, and while security is making sure the locks and alarm on your doors work to keep it safe. So for example, when we use social media platforms, we share informations about ourselves, especially in Facebook. Privacy settings on these specific platforms allows us to control who can see our posts and personal details, while security protocols protect us from hackers and prevent others from accessing our accounts without permission. Both privacy and security work together on protecting our data. So next slide, please. Next, Patea. Next slide, please, Thea. Okay. Ay, lapas na. Okay, so the importance of privacy and security policies. So why are these policies so important? Because accordingly, our personal data had become a valuable asset in the digital age, such as companies, governments, and organizations, and even in our schools. And these personal data that they collected is considered as a vast amount of data daily. So this data is often used to improve services. It could be personalized experiences, and in many cases for targeted advertisements. So however, when personal information is mishandled or falls into the wrong hands, it can lead to privacy violations and even identity theft. So next, So this is where data protection policies like General Data Protecting Regulations or the GDPR in Europe and also the CCPA or the California Consumers Privacy Act in California. So but here in the Philippines, to contextualize this example, the Philippines has not directly implemented the General Data Protection Regulation or the GDRP. PR and the California Consumer Privacy Act or the CCPA. And as these are specific to Europe and California only, respectively. But however, the country, Philippines, has its own Data Privacy Act of 2012, or the Republic Act number 10173, which serves as a comprehensive data protection law similar to in the intent of GDPR and the CCPA. So the Data Privacy Act of 2012 aims to protect the privacy of us individuals while ensuring at the same time the free flow and information of national and development. So next, I also have here the real world examples in education in which our data is being collected. We have here okay, but for a while, let's look at this real-world example to education. So many schools and universities use online learning platforms to facilitate virtual classes, assignments, and assessments. And these platforms collect students' data to enhance learning
Um,
experience and to track the
sorry to
process.
sorry to interrupt, Mr. Joseph, but your 5 minutes is over.
Okay, thank you, Hara.
Thank you so much, Mr. Joseph Finoles. Now let's hear from Ms. Marvian Badan on surveillance and data retention. Ms. Marvi?
Thank you, Miss Abby. Good afternoon, everyone. Am I audible? Okay. So once again, good afternoon. So as I went through to one of the materials I read yesterday, I stumbled upon this one question, and it says, should we leave our lives to be controlled by technology, or should we control the utilization of technology? Nowadays, the lives of teachers and students are influenced by technology. The advancement of technology has totally shaped and elevated us to another level of classroom setting, and its implication have brought us a huge impact. And as we continue our discussion this afternoon, I want you to reflect upon that question. Once again, good afternoon. I am Miss Marvi Ann Badan, and this afternoon I'll be sharing with you about surveillance and data retention as one of the issues in ICT and Internet policy and regulations. First, let us define what is data retention. So, data retention refers to the practice of storing data for a specific period of time, and it is necessary for several reasons. Next slide, please. First, we have it supports national security and law enforcement by helping to monitor and investigate criminal activities, including terrorism or cybercrime. And next, we also have here, it ensures regulatory compliance, especially in industries like healthcare and finance, where specific data must be retained to protect both the organizations and the clients. For business, data retention aids in understanding customer behaviors and making informed decisions. And it also plays a critical role in disaster recovery and continuity. So, how? Through ensuring that vital information can be restored in the event of data loss. And additionally, it promotes accountability and transparency, especially on the sector of finance. And lastly, it aids research and development by providing historical data for analysis. Next slide, please. So surveillance, on the other hand, involves the close observation of individuals, groups, or activities to gather information and manage or direct behavior. So next slide. This includes electronic surveillance, internet, and human surveillance. So despite of the positive implications of surveillance and data retention, it has its own downside. First, next slide, please. We have the privacy concern. Privacy concern is the retention of vast amounts of personal data, including emails, browsing history, um, and location information that poses significant risk to individuals. We also have, next please, we also have data security risk, which also increases as storing large volumes of data make it as a target for cyber criminals. Next, please. And over-retention of data can lead to operational inefficiencies and increased costs. So there is also what we call the chilling effect. Next, please. The chilling effect that may cause individuals to self-censor their behavior and speech, stifling or suppressing their right to freedom expression. So the collection and storing of vast amounts of personal data has raised concerns about privacy and data security. With this, surveillance and data retention becomes a prominent issue due to the rapid advancement of technology and the increasing digitization of communication, especially since more of our daily activities have shifted from offline to online. And so with that, the potential for mass surveillance has grown significantly. Meanwhile, in the context of teaching and learning, these issues are highly relevant as well. That's why educators and students must attain a balance between the growing use of technology for educational advancement and safeguarding privacy and data security. As we move forward, it is crucial to stay informed and critical about the policies and regulations that govern our digital interactions. And to the next slide, please. So by doing so, we can ensure that technology remains a tool for empowerment rather than control. So that would be all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Miss Marvian Baden, for that very informative talk. Now, finally, let us have Miss Lexin Tanudra. She will be covering e-pollutants from e-waste. Miss Lexin? Okay, yes, Miss Althea. Okay, so everyone, for a while, we'll be fixing our PowerPoint presentation since there is a power interruption in Miss Althea's place. Miss Hara Simone Apoong. We're gonna have an intermission number represented by Miss Hara Simone Apoong while we wait for Althea to fix our
that may actually contaminate the environment. Millions of e-waste are recycled, stored in homes and warehouses, dumped, and illegally exported. So when e-waste is improperly disposed, it can release up to 1,000 different chemical substances into the environment. Next slide, please. That is why this is harmful because it is toxic and it accumulates in the environment, in the soil, air, water, and living things. Next slide, please. In fact, according to the UN or the United Nations, in 2021, each person on the planet will produce on average 7.6 kilogram of e-waste, meaning that massive 57.4 million tons will be generated worldwide. And only 17.4% of these electronic waste is properly collected, treated, and recycled. Next slide, please. Now, this is therefore the negative effects of e-waste or e-pollutants: air, soil, water, and humans. So basically, for the soil, there are some tendencies that e-waste are put in landfills, which will release toxins in the soil as it degrades. And for the water, these are toxic, and it makes the water more acidic, which is very harmful in the biodiversity and destroys the ecosystems. And of course, for the humans, these are also very poisonous. It can lead us to possess any diseases, heart disease, for brain, and it is also susceptible to pregnant women. Now, the relation, next slide, please. Now, the relation of ICT and internet policy or regulation is therefore imperative because the sector of ICT generates a major amount of e-waste, but some management strategies are not well defined. Therefore, it needs to consider the cross-border e-waste movements. Next slide, please. Now, internet policy regulations can influence how e-waste is managed because it mandates a responsible recycling and disposal of ICT equipment, ensuring that harmful e-pollutants are managed properly. This also includes the adherence to standards set forth by laws, organizations, and any executive orders, for instance. So many initiatives are undertaken to tackle this growing concern, but none of them can be fully effective without the active role and correct education of consumers. Next slide, please. Now, internet policies can help consumer awareness about e-waste and its environmental consequences. For instance, campaigns or promotions about recycling of obsolete gadgets. Next slide, please. Now, regulatory frameworks can incentivize research into more sustainable ICT practices, such as
Sorry to
designing devices.
interrupt, Miss Lexine, but your 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Miss Lexen Tanudra, and to all our speakers for today. And my sincere apologies for the several interruptions that we've encountered. I do hope everyone is still present and are now ready for our next session's part. For this juncture, we will proceed to the question and answer part of our forum to be facilitated by Miss Abigail Fernandez. And to our audience, please send your questions to her. And Miss Abby, please read out the first question if there's any now.
Yes, there are three. And so first is a question addressed to speaker number three, Miss Marvian Badan. A question from Bakangis and Cabrehas. In data retention, how long should data be stored before it's deleted? And in what ways can data retention policies be abused by governments or organizations?
Thank you, Miss Abby. So, data retention can take up to 6 months to 6 years, depending on the data use, and organizations usually dispose data immediately when it's no longer usable because it costs a lot and it takes a lot of resources to retain data. And I think data retention policies are abused when data collected and stored are used outside the agreed outline policies between the organizations and the clients involved. So I guess that's it. I hope that answers your question.
Okay, thank you. So next is a question addressed to everybody, which is which came from Mr. Kapada and Ms. Bobo. What are the pros and cons and implications of artificial intelligence in classroom teaching? Is there anyone who would like to answer this question? Yes, Mr. John Paul Cimentao, you're acknowledged.
So I just want to check if I am audible.
Yes, you are, Mr.
Okay, thank you. So integrating AI in classroom teaching offers numerous benefits, such as personalized learning, increased efficiency by automating administrative tasks, and enhance students' engagement through interactive content. However, it also comes with challenges like potential biases, misinformation, and a lack of emotional understanding. AI can make education more accessible and equitable, but it requires careful consideration of ethical implications, data privacy, and the evolving role of teachers from content deliverers to facilitators. Balancing these pros and cons is essential to harness AI's potential in the education responsibly.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Paul. Next is a question from yours truly. A broader question for everybody on how can ICT and internet policy frameworks balance the need for security and surveillance with the protection of individual privacy and freedom of expression. Is there anyone who would like to answer this question? Yes, Miss Sid Angeli, you're acknowledged.
So, ICT and internet policy frameworks can be balanced security needs with privacy and freedom of expression by adopting a rights-based approach to policy making. So, such frameworks should ensure that any surveillance is targeted, proportionate, and conducted with strict oversight to prevent abuse. So, transparency is key, where government and corporations are required to disclose surveillance practices and the legal rationale behind them. Policies like data minimization, where only necessary data is collected and stored for the shortest possible time, can also help protect individual privacy. Additionally, integrating protections for freedom of expression into these frameworks, such as prohibiting censorship without the due process, allows individuals to communicate and access information without fear.
Okay, thank you, Miss Sid Angeli, for answering that. Are there any questions prior to the questions I've mentioned? Yes, Miss Mary Joy Pimento, you're acknowledged.
So my question is for the speaker number two, Mr. Hinolas. So this is my question. What is a data breach and how might it impact students and teachers?
Okay, so thank you so much for raising your question, Miss Mary Joy. Actually, I was not able to finish my talk, but as defined, data breach is something that is sensitive information is accessed, stolen, or exposed by unauthorized parties. So this data can include personal details, your financial information, or academic records, and data breach could affect educators and students in various ways, such as loss of trust and credibility, also the exposure of personal information, because if data breach involves educators' information, including address, phone number, or bank details, it could lead to identity thief. And lastly, the potential for targeted attack and as a future educator having increasingly to training data privacy security to prevent breaches or protect student data and uphold ethical standards. I that's it, Miss Camille. I hope it answers your question.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you, Mr. Nicholas. Are there any more questions from the audience? Yes, Mr. Charles, knowledge.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are, Mr.
Okay. I have a question to the first speaker, Ms. Leila Mwanya. How can we balance freedom of expression and meaning maintain a respectful, productive work environment?
Okay, thank you for that question. To answer, balancing freedom of expression in the workplace can be achieved by establishing clear, fair communication guidelines that protect both individual expression and professional respect. So, as I said earlier, we should have a legal framework. So, in this framework, it involves creating spaces for open dialogue while setting boundaries around discriminatory or disruptive behavior. The key is to foster an environment where people feel safe to share ideas and concerns professionally while maintaining policies that address inappropriate or harmful communication that would damage workplace unity or harmony rather. Thank you. Does that answer your question, Mr. Paredes?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any more? Yes, Miss Zaira Malinaw, you're acknowledged.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I have a question for the first speaker. How can we promote critical thinking and media literacy to combat the spread of misinformation and disinformation, since you talked about fake news earlier?
I'm sorry, you were a bit choppy. Can you come again later, Miss Zaira?
Sorry, Miss Malinaw, you're so choppy. Can we proceed to another questions if there are any? Yes, Miss Meleta Gayuna, you're acknowledged.
Hello, good afternoon. I have a question for our second speaker, Mr. Hinolos. Okay, so here's my question. How do we identify secure websites for browsing and online transactions?
Can you please repeat the question, Miss Millet?
How do we identify secure websites for browsing and online transactions?
Okay. So, um, to identify secure data, secure website for browsing, I think it is beneficial for you to analyze first the credibility of that certain application or browsing website so that we could avoid any issues regarding the data breach, or it could be viruses that may occur in a certain website. And I think for you to analyze which browsing data is safer, I think we could really assess it through its various reviews before you install the application. But while using the application, if you know that that certain application or website is sending you different ads, I think it is beneficial for you to block or uninstall that website. But you can use that website, I think, in moderation. Thank you.
So thank you, Mr.
Wala,
Ginolas.
naghatag ilang question. Thank
Jessa,
you.
are you raising your hands? Do you have questions?
I would like to ask question for Miss Badan. Um, how long should data be stored before it's deleted?
Nakamute, Deko?
Okay, once again. Data retention can, or like data should be retained for like up to 6 months to 6 years, um, depending on the use of the data. Because if we are going to, or if the organization is going to keep the data for a longer period of time, and if it's and when it's not um, usable, it will cost them a lot because it really takes a lot of resources to retain data. So I guess that's it. I hope that answers your question, Miss Bakungis.
So thank you, Miss Marvian. Now let's have who's raising their hands? Miss Sweet Hilot, you're acknowledged.
Good afternoon, everyone. I have a question for Mr. Hinolos. What are some common privacy issues students face when using online learning platforms?
Come again, Miss Hilot, please.
Um, what are some common privacy risks that students face when using online learning platforms?
I think based on my experience, uh, some data that may expose when you using a certain online learning tool is that the use of your Gmail account. Of course, it is given to fill out your Gmail account, but for me, I think this is something I'm not really comfortable of unless you have your institutional account. I think this is something most commonly that the students are experiencing because some other are hesitant to give their, especially their not their institutional email because some teachers might opt to fill out their email aside from their institutional account. Thank you, Miss Hilot.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ginales. So a while ago, Miss Zaira is very choppy, so she sent her questions, and here it is, which is addressed to Miss Kayla Malmonia, speaker number one. How can we promote critical thinking and, and media literacy to combat the spread of misinformation and disinformation?
Okay, thank you for that, Miss Malinaw. I'm so sorry earlier I could not hear you well. To promote critical thinking and combat misinformation, we need to focus on developing um, strong educational programs that um, teach source verification, fact checking, and the identity to identify bias in media content, as that is very rampant right now, especially in political topics. So, I think educational institutions should integrate media literacy into their core curriculum. Although we already have in 11th grade media literacy subject, um, I do not think that it was really implemented well and established well as a learning guide for students. Um, uh, what else? Teaching students how to cross-reference informations. Uh, this is this is also useful in doing researches, understand social media algorithms, and recognize emotional manipulation in content. The goal is to create a society where critical evaluation of information becomes a second in nature. As of course, in our society right now, we are also technology and media is also second in our nature. Um, uh, that will support both individuals' skill development and institutional resources that encourage people to verify information through multiple reliable sources before sharing. Does that answer your question, Miss Zaira?
Okay, thank you, Miss Kayla. So now, let's proceed to Mr. Rafvik Raton. Do you
Do you
have
have
any
any
question,
question,
Mister?
Mister? Okay, so pleasant afternoon to everyone. So am I audible?
Yes,
Yes,
you
you
are,
are,
Mister.
Mister. So I would like to address this question to Miss Badan. So how does the implementation of surveillance and data retention policies in schools impact student privacy and the ethical responsibilities of educators?
Thank you, Mr. Calaton. So when crafting and outlining policies, the institution must develop or establish clear policies that outline the purpose, scope, and limitations of surveillance and data retention, and they must implement measures to protect students' privacy, such as anonymizing data where it can only be accessible to authorized personnel. I think that answers your question.
Thank you, Miss Badan.
Okay, thank you. So now let's have Mr. Vincent Capada.
Vincent Capada.
Your acknowledge.
This question is for everyone. How can we ensure that freedom of expression while also preventing the spread of harmful content?
So
So
this
this
question is
question is
addressed to
addressed to
everyone. Is
everyone. Is
there
there
anyone who
anyone
would
who would
like to
like to
answer
answer
this
this
question?
question?
Mr.
Mr.
John Ray
John Ray
Gayao,
Gayao,
would you
would you
like to
like to
answer the
answer the
question?
question?
Miss
Miss
Abigail,
Abigail,
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
entertain
entertain
questions
questions
in the
in the
group
group
chat
chat
and
and
let
let
anybody
anybody
answer the
answer the
question.
question.
Okay, sir.
Begin with the question of Mr. Libaras.
Plus
Plus
3 minutes.
3 minutes.
If
If
no
no
one
one
wishes
wishes
to
to
answer
answer
the
the
questions,
questions,
we
we
will
will
end
end
the
the
Q&A.
Q&A.
Transparency in their censorship
Censorship
decisions. Huh?
huh?
Nakamute ka. Abi, nakamute ka.
Please on your mic.
Sir,
Sir,
excuse me. Sir,
Yes.
is it possible to answer the questions in the chat box, sir?
Not from the speakers.
Okay, sir.
Last 2 minutes. Anyone who wish to answer any of the questions? Do not answer in the chat box. Explain it to the group. Last call.
Okay, so first, I just want to answer the question being raised by Mr. Kapada earlier. So his question was, how can we ensure that freedom of expression is, I think it's protected while also preventing the spread of harmful content. So to protect freedom of expression while preventing harmful content, we need clear legislation to define harmful material, effective content moderation, combining algorithms and human oversight, promotion of digital literacy to help users identify harmful content, and transparency in moderation practices to hold platforms accountable. This balanced approach helps safeguard both free speech and public safety. So that's it.
John Paul, which question did you answer?
The one being raised by Mr. Kapada a while ago, sir.
In group chat?
No, sir.
You're not following instructions.
Sorry, sir.
So, good afternoon. I want to answer the question.
Turn off your other monitor, Katrina.
Uh,
Turn off your other monitor.
so, I want to answer the question being raised by Krija. How can public awareness and education contribute to better privacy and security practices? So, public awareness and education are crucial for empowering individuals to make informed decision about their online activities. So, when people understood the basic of privacy and security, such as recognizing phishing attempts, creating strong passwords, and understanding data sharing risks, they are less likely to fall victim to cyber threats. And so educational initiatives, especially when integrated into school curricula or workplace training, can instill a culture of digital responsibility. With greater awareness, people can advocate for more secure platforms and push organizations to adopt higher standards. And overall, it is a well-informed public. Well-informed and public is powerful to force a creating a safer digital environment for everyone.
Abigail, nawala si Abi.
Yes, sir. Nawala iyahang data, sir.
Abigail, entertain one more answer, then let's stop the Q&A.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Right, who would like to answer a question? Miss sorry, I can see.
Nurse,
Nurse, kilala?
Okay,
Okay,
so
so my
my
question
question
is
is
addressed
addressed
to
to
everyone.
everyone.
What
What
are
are
exactly the
exactly the
long-term
long-term
effects
effects
of
of
e-waste
e-waste
on
on
our
our
ecosystems?
ecosystems?
Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to answer Miss Kilala's question. I think your question is like been mentioned the PPT earlier. I think the long-term effects of the electronic waste is like the salt contamination, water pollution, and air pollution, as it mentioned earlier by Miss Lexine, if I'm right. So yeah, that's it.
Okay, thank you so much, Miss Hara Apoang. And thank you everyone for your questions and responses. And at this juncture, we will now be hearing the concluding statements from our speakers. Let's start with our first speaker earlier, Miss Kayla Muanya. Miss Kayla, are you still there? Miss Kayla? Everyone, am I audible?
Yes, you
Okay.
are, Miss Abigail.
Thank you, Hara. Where is Miss Kayla? Okay, let's proceed first with Mr. Hinolas for his concluding statements. Is Mr. Hinolas here? Is our second speaker still here?
Yes, yes, sorry. I'm so sorry, Abigail, because I'm having trouble with my internet connection. But to conclude my talk, let us remember that in a world shaped by technology, our greatest defense is awareness and action. So together, we can uphold the values of privacy and security, not just as policies, but as fundamental rights. Thank you for being part of this important conversation, and let us continue to build a future where technology empowers us without compromising our trust. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much.
Thank you so much for that, Mr. Joseph Hinolas. And now let's proceed first with Miss Marvian Badan. Miss Marvi, is Miss Marvi present? Is she still in our meet? Okay. If not, I would like to call on Miss Lexine Tanudra to give her concluding statements.
Okay, so I would like to remind everyone that every device that we have produce a carbon footprint which is very harmful, and it can also result to long-term effects, no? And then I would like to thank everyone also for listening despite your interconnection constraints.
Thank you so much, Miss Lexine. Unfortunately, everyone, Miss Kayla and Miss Marvian has internet connection again, so we wouldn't be able to hear their concluding statements. But in behalf of our speakers, I would like to thank you all, and to our speakers today for your insightful presentations and your informative talks, and everyone for your participation. And now this concludes our forum on ICT and Internet Policy and Regulation. I hope you will all have a great day ahead. Thank you.